noting its valuation spiked post-2024 election, yet its inclusion of XRP's assets remains unclear. So will their escrow be included in their valuation? Fueling debates about the true market cap established at $150 billion by some analysts due to the escrow holdings. So if Ripple goes public with an IPO, I am definitely going to be getting in on that stock. Let me know down below, would you be interested in a Ripple stock if they IPO? And speaking of Bitcoin, when I woke up this morning, the craziest news happened. Obviously, this wallet that's potentially connected to Satoshi, still no one knows. Turns out that there was 8 wallets. The same person did 8 transactions of 10,000 Bitcoin, transferring over $8 billion today. And there were no test transactions, which is absolutely nuts. So let's cover this here. But before we jump into that, take a look at this. Bitcoin whales have dumped over 500,000 Bitcoin worth $50 billion this past year, while institutions absorbed 900,000 Bitcoin, signaling a control shift in the Bitcoin market per Bloomberg. So is Bitcoin going to be decentralized still, or are these mega corporations accumulating all of it and going to create a pseudo technocracy through Bitcoin? And on top of all those crazy transfers, Satoshi Nakamoto also just received to its specific Satoshi Nakamoto wallet 20,000. So someone donated $20,000 in Bitcoin to Satoshi's wallet. A dormant wallet wakes up, that's been inactive for 14 years, transferred 10,000 Bitcoin. Whale Alerts was absolutely on fire this morning, documenting each one of these transfers as it was happening. Who bought 80,000 Bitcoin? This is from back in the day. Was it a miner? Because it's kind of random that these wallets had 10,000 each, but multiple wallets, likely controlled by a single individual, have been activated after more than a decade, all within 24 hours. The coins have been moved to a fresh address, pointing unmistakably to what appears to be the largest over-the-counter deal the market has ever seen. A whale of this size doesn't broadcast intentions to sell by lighting up dormant wallets all at once, unless it was planned, strategic, surgical, and already done behind the closed doors. Something big just happened. That's correct. The real question now is, who's buying $8 billion worth of Bitcoin? Well, you know, there is this little bill that got signed today, and there was a bill that got signed, or executive order that got signed a little while ago, stating that there was going to be a Bitcoin strategic reserve. What if some of the money that was allocated into the big, beautiful bill ended up buying $8 billion worth of Bitcoin? So Bitcoin price did lose nearly 2% after 14-year-old coins suddenly move on chain. Explanations include an unsubstantiated claim linking the Bitcoin wallets to Satoshi Nakamoto. Price comes for Bitcoin longs as a result, with shorts massing above $110,000. And speaking of the Bitcoin price today, on the 4th of July, if you were not paying attention, remember July 4th of 2020 when XRP hit 17.76 cents, gold hit 1,776, silver hit $17.76, and XLM hit the reserve of 1776, or the rather 0.71. Well, Bitcoin hit this morning $107,760. Happy 4th of July. Why is this number important? Well, United States, 4th of July, comes at 1776, the establishment of the United States. How is this simulation working this so well? Like, this is absolutely nuts. Obviously, this is all programmed in some sort of way, but $107,760 price of Bitcoin today on 4th of July. Also, the craziness, the back and forth, the arguing, the this, the that, the votes, the this, the that, and the bill of the big, beautiful bill gets passed officially yesterday and signed. When? 4th of July, Independence Day. How does this all happen on the days that it's supposed to happen on? And one of the best posts, in my personal opinions, that came out today through all of this news, you know, the final Bitcoin billionaire address just moved 1.1 billion, then it became 8 billion. But take a look at this. You know how people have been LARPing around over a decade that Bitcoin is not private? That you need Monero or Zcash to keep your anonymity when it comes to dealing with crypto. But then somebody sends $8.6 billion and nobody on earth can tell who it is. Nobody knows who this person is that actually sent it. Now, what is interesting? This is a good point here, right? Airmass makes a very good point saying that on the surface, nobody knows who this is. However, this person is potentially tracked to where they are going to have to pay taxes on this $8.6 billion. Now, what's also interesting, they have not sold the $8.6 billion officially on an exchange. They could have just simply moved the coins and still maintaining the coins somewhere else. But if they sold it, there's going to be capital gains tax, which makes me wonder why they would do it right now when there's potential in the future that there will be no capital gains on crypto and Bitcoin, which is why I'm thinking when I was going through my head and I was evaluating the situation, like if you moved $8 billion and you had to pay $4 billion in taxes, unless you already were planning on making this move and you were no longer living in the United States, you could have moved 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago to a country that doesn't have a crypto tax, so you pay no capital gains living there. That's a potential. Or maybe there was an agreement made that through the sale of these tokens to the United States for their Bitcoin strategic reserve, that there would be no tax involved in that. So lots of weird things going on. It's still all a mystery, but this is a great point. No one knows who this person is, so it is literally and anonymously, So good point there from Airmass as well. And on top of all this, the craziness is connecting back to potentially Ripple, because Satoshi's last known message was in April of 2011. May of 2011, David Schwartz starts building the XRP ledger. August of 2011, Arthur Brito joins Twitter. And now, 14 years later, Brito appears. Remember, Arthur Brito just did this random post just recently, finally, after 14 years of being away from X. And then 14-year-old dormant wallets on Bitcoin wallets just moved. XRP is the final version of Bitcoin. So here's another crazy mystery. What if Arthur Brito was the one holding all of those crypto tokens, the Bitcoin tokens that were just transferred, and they're going to be transferred to what, though? Right? Why would Arthur Brito be transferring those now? Is he selling them? Is he still going to continue to hold them? But the interesting thing, the post that Arthur Brito did do on his X.com account was a smiley face with no face. And that is also being attached now to the Bearable Guy 123, and all of his posts where he has the king person, the king character, it also is a face with no mouth. Again, here's another image from the Bearable Guy, the king with no mouth. Now, he does have a beard, but usually you would have some sort of mouth. Look at all of his characters have a mouth, even the robot. We go back to the scene of playing poker. No mouth. You go on and on and on. All of the images on Bearable Guy 123, the king has no mouth. So is it potential that the king in this character would be Arthur Brito? Then we also have the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, we know that Arthur Brito lives. We know that David Schwartz knows who he is. We don't have any images of him, we being the general public. Maybe somebody out there, maybe one of you have seen him. No one has a picture of him posted on the internet. But then we also have Satoshi Nakamoto, no pictures, no one knows who he is. So two crazy mysterious figures that no one actually has seen. No one actually knows whether Satoshi is gone. What if Satoshi is Brito? What if Brito is Satoshi? And if that is the case, that would be absolutely nuts. Arthur Brito would probably be one of the richest people in the entire world when you combine Satoshi's Bitcoin holdings plus Brito's XRP holdings. Absolutely nuts as far as that goes. So as we know, all of these crazy transfers have been going on with Bitcoin. And what we see here, the X trading account Kingfisher observed a spike in so-called toxic order flow, transactions which would result in losses for market makers. He says that I'd expect it to retrace, maybe liquidate those high leverage shorts. Part of the post suggests is referring to a buildup of BTC short liquidity on exchange order books. So as you can see right here, the price with the candles has been coming down and dropping to this level down into the 107. But look at all of these shorts up in this level that need to be liquidated. You can see all of the longs. These people were long Bitcoin essentially. And well, prices came down and then stopped them out in their stop losses. But now look at all these people that are short Bitcoin. they have stop losses set all the way up into these levels. And in fact, when you take a look right here, Insight, if Bitcoin hits $113,000, over $5 billion in short positions could be liquidated. And as you know, this market is run by market makers. Their job is to go up and eat up all the liquidity up and down, why the markets do what they do. So there is definitely a likelihood price recovers from this area, moves up into the 113 range, with all these longs, and then we would see another drop to the low. And then also right now, Bitcoin going through this pattern here with a level of resistance above it, the level of support below it, creating a bull flag pattern, this being the flag pattern. We did break out of the level to the upside, only to be then dropped back down. It says right here, if price daily closes above the diagonal line, then this could have ended up as a downside wick as part of a volatile retest. Upcoming daily close will be pivotal, and we'll take a look at the close here soon. Previously, other crypto market participants have repeatedly highlighted $108,000 as the level that the bulls need to hold going forward. So an absolute crazy morning this morning and throughout the day with the Bitcoin wallets transferring 80,000 Bitcoin after 14 years. Could you imagine buying Bitcoin or mining Bitcoin at that time for 78 cents each? That's right. So the very first wallet that went crazy this morning that transferred 10,000 Bitcoin at one time was 1.09 billion. The wallet originally received these 10,000 Bitcoins when price was only 78 cents a Bitcoin. So could you imagine holding 14 years? You become a billionaire over 14 years. Like you might say billionaire overnight because you just hold it the next morning. Because what happened? Did this person just randomly find their wallet, their hard drive that all these coins were stored on? Did they just get out of jail and they were like, hey, I'm trying to get rich? Like, it's such a mystery. And I wonder if one day we'll find out what really happened. All right, so next week is going to be Crypto Week. Chairman French Hill, House GOP Chairman, and Congressman GT and House leadership announced this week, July 14th, will be Crypto Week, where the Clarity Act, Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, and Genius Act will be considered. The Senate did pass the Genius Act with bipartisan support last month, meaning that if the House passes the bill as is, it will be sent to Trump to sign into law. So we have the big, beautiful bill this week, then all the crypto bills next week. Trump would be on an absolute roll. It'd be phenomenal to get all these things passed back to back to back to back. Bo Hines said, congratulations to President Trump and the House for passing the big, beautiful bill, delivering tax cuts, securing the border, ending the tax on tips, making the American economy stronger than ever. Next up, Crypto Week. Genius heading to President. The crafted market structure bill is heading to the Senate. Clarity to the President's desk next week. And of course, the GOP aims to ban CBDCs. We do not want CBDCs. That's a central bank digital currency. And we know how the central bank is fighting with Trump right now through the Federal Reserve. The bill would prohibit the Federal Reserve from being able to test, develop, create, or issue digital currency in any form and stop the central bank from offering financial products directly to individuals. The bill was introduced by the last Congress by House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, but it expired at the end of Congress's term after it passed the House in May of 2024. Emmer revived that bill in the current Congress, and the House Finance Committee passed its version of the bill in April, while the Senate version is still sitting in the Chamber's Banking Committee. So pay attention to high volatility next week in the markets. All right, heading over here to XRP in the charts. First and foremost, we are going to take a look at the daily chart. So as we can see, the daily charts, our long-term momentum wave has just barely passed, literally the day before yesterday, into the green. So we're looking good there if we can get some continuation to the upside. Unfortunately, when we look at the chart, we are running into one of our resistance lines. It's the spider line, and that one has been a pesky resistance. Resistance here, June 3rd, resistance here, June 16th, resistance here, June 30th, and now the resistance into July as well. Once we break this level of 25 cents, we'll see ourselves heading back up into the $2.50 level, and we do have more potential of doing so now that we at least have finally crossed over on the long-term bullish momentum wave here, the Wolfpack. Down below, we have our short-term momentum waves. Unfortunately, these have pumped to the upside, maxing out at the 100 level. They are looking like they need to have another reset to the downside. Positive news. What we're really looking for here is the white line, which is the mid-term momentum wave, to continue riding high, while the short-term momentum wave takes a small reset and then rebounds to the upside. So watch the green line as it will come down, turn red, and then flip back to green. So we do need to punch through this $2.25 level. We come up here, then price will come down and retest and take off, while this does its retest and takes off, and while this continues to make its way to the upside. That's what we're looking for on the daily charts for XRP. If we lose it and price just decides to do a little dip and then rip to the downside, and this right here just comes to the downside as well, now you've got both short-term, mid-term, long-term momentum down. There is a possibility of returning back to this $1.90 level. But I am optimistic when it comes to XRP, so I would love to see this thing rip to the upside for sure. Taking a look at Bitcoin, we can see that our short-term momentum wave has officially reached the top, of the mid-term momentum wave's continuing to make its way to the upside. Our long-term momentum wave is green, so we're showing bullish. You can see this is what we want to see out of XRP. We have that little dip and rip to the upside if we lose the level that we're at right now. We finally got back into the green. Last time Bitcoin broke through to the upside was back here on April 20th and made an absolute run to the upside. Then it just now broke as of June 24th. It's kind of failing to continue its momentum to the upside, so we do need to see momentum to the upside. What we also see, as we were talking about in the article that we were just reading, we do have this resistance line here to the top. We have broken out of it. We came down. We do have 1 hour and 5 minutes left in this daily candle. Can it just be a retest? A deep spike wick to the downside, filling in the fair value gap that was right here anyway that needed to be filled, is filled, and then it pushes back to the upside. Continuation of this continues when we take a look at our weekly chart, our big giant bull flag that we have playing out. So this being the flagpole, right here, the flagpole, this being the flag. And when you connect the flagpole to the flag, it gives us $146,000 target price for Bitcoin. $4,100 in Ethereum. So this looks like a very term momentum is in the bearish section right now. It has not passed over the zero line when it comes to Ethereum. However, short-term momentum's looking strong to the upside. Checking back in with XRP on a smaller time frame. Let's go down for those of you guys that like more of the intraday trading or day trading. As we can see, XRP did get up into our price zones that we've been talking about here as a supply and demand. These supply and demands come to us from the June 16th, June 17th time frame. We've hit it once. Now we're back in it a second time, rejected off of it, came down to this lower level supply and demand zone. Back out of this zone, making its way to the upside. Let's take a look down here. Our long-term momentum wave is still below the zero line. So we can see last time on XRP, we broke above the zero line was here. And that's when price was at about $2.20. And then that whole move went up into the 231. So that was a 10-cent move in this smaller time frame. Now, what's really great is if we bust out from where we're at right now, we're not even there yet. But if we're here, we have the same similar scenario play out, going from 215 to 230, a 15-cent move, so going from 220 to 235, which would be fantastic because it was breaking out above the $2.33 resistance line of this supply and demand zone. So we'll continue to watch and monitor that. You can see our short-term momentum wave has started to make its climb to the upside, showing positive strength there. Mid-term momentum just laying flat, though. That needs to kick it up to the upside. You can see when the short-term and mid-term momentum both get up here, that's when price can really start to surge. We also saw that same point right here that we did break above the zero line. So bullish news, I want to see us break above $3, $2.34, break above $2.34. That would continue our move up back to the 243 levels. If we lose it, we come down. Good news is there's a whole lot of support to the downside. If we break below this 220, we got support here at 218 to 216. And then there's a very, very, very strong support of 215. As long as World War III doesn't break out, we have some crazy, stupid drop to the downside. But we have 215, which will be acting as a very strong support level. As you can see, price broke above 215, came down, tested it again, made a run up, tested it again, made a run up. So we are in a very tight range right now that's very, very important to break out of, to the upside or the downside, depending on whether you're a long-term trader or a short trader.
Hey, bull runners, check this out. If you want to learn how to find the next 10x, 50x, or even 100x altcoin in this video, listen to this. Our research team posted GOAT on the 13th of October of 2024 when it was right at a penny, and since then it rallied to over $1 and is currently still up over 5,000%. That's like turning $1,000 into over $50,000. Our team called Pendle at only a $16 million market cap, or 16 cents, back on February 18th of 2023, all the way back here, and since then it's rallied up over 4,000%. That's a 40x. It's like turning $1,000 into over $40,000. Our team also called BitTensor Tau September 15th, 2022, before the token was ever even over. That's a Lana is most $22. The bottom, it's up over 2,500%. That's a 20 called Sui, Ondo. And even some of the biggest cult-based meme coins like MOG back in July 20th of 2023, the day that MOG launched. So if you want to learn how our team is finding these coins before they explode, we just launched Altcoin Pro University, where our research team gives you real-time altcoin picks with explosive potential for this bull run, along with 100+ expert curated classes crafted by industry experts to discover these gems yourself, on top of our live weekly calls every single week for in-depth crypto market analysis and daily updates. And that's just a fraction of what we offer inside of Altcoin Pro University. Just go through the link in the description below, get in right now, watch the 26-minute video covering everything that Altcoin Pro University offers.
We've scoured the web and conducted numerous interviews to find individuals with some incredible paranormal experiences from their time in the military, from Bigfoot-like creatures to UAP and things more terrifying. These are some of the most terrifying military paranormal encounters you've ever heard. The Vietnam Predator. I don't know if whoever made the Predator movie ever heard this story, or maybe one like it, because mine isn't the only one. But I feel like whoever made that movie knew about these things, because the movie is spot on. I was with the 281st Assault Helicopter Company in Vietnam. Our job was to fly Special Forces guys around Vietnam and conduct raids, recon, and all sorts of things. I don't know if they teach this anywhere, but the U.S. invented air assault operations using helicopters, and it was damn effective catching the enemy from behind where they least expected. But it was dangerous, because if your intel wasn't good, and a lot of time it wasn't, you could end up smack dab in the middle of two NVA forces. Well, what we did was sort of like that, only more dangerous, because we worked in smaller teams. Anyway, my chopper went down in 67. It wasn't enemy fire or anything like that, it was the transmission. Nowadays you got redundancies, but the Huey was pretty new and had a lot of single points of failure. The shops kept our choppers in good working order, so I don't know, maybe it was just bad luck. It wasn't that bad of a crash, thanks to the tree canopy and the fact that we were low and slow at the time. The chopper rolled over as it fell out of the tree about 20 feet to the ground, and that's what killed 3 of our guys instantly, crushing them to death. Now that left me, my co-pilot, and 5 other guys in the back. We had a PRC-10 radio that survived the crash, but the damn thing wouldn't transmit, only receive. I think it got battered about in the crash. We had about a 20-click walk back to the nearest fire base on our map, and that doesn't sound too bad until you figure in the weather in the jungle. The place is a soup of trees and vegetation, slowing you down to just a few clicks a day. We debated staying put and waiting for rescue, but we knew we were close to a major VC operational area, and that's why we were there. If friends had seen the crash and heard our mayday over the radio, so did they. Anyway, we just gathered what we could from the chopper, destroyed some of the more sensitive gear just in case, and moved out. We didn't see it that first night, but we heard it. At first, I thought it was a strange bird. It made this clicking sound, like taking two small pieces of metal and clicking them together rapidly. But one of the Special Forces guys said that's no bird. Those boys were trained to know that kind of stuff. It helped them identify sounds in the jungle and all that, so I believed it. We thought it was the VC, so we put our asses in gear. But the sound kept catching up to us, and at one point, it moved past us, just off in the trees, maybe 30, 40 meters from us. It was high up, too, like it was moving along the treetops. We froze and took cover thinking it was still VC, but it didn't make any sense. Besides, if there were VC out there, they would have pounced on us. Taking U.S. prisoners was their top priority. During the day, we rested to avoid the worst of the heat, then started moving again late in the day and at night. We were going slow. It was just after heavy rain, so the ground was marshy, and it was awful going. We were making 3 or 4 clicks a day. As soon as we started moving, though, the clicking was there again. It was almost like it was letting us know, okay, you guys are up now, and so am I. It didn't make any noise while we were resting or sleeping. That second night, something walked by in the brush ahead of us. I was near the front, and I saw it along with one other guy. I couldn't describe it. It was really dark, and we weren't getting much moonlight through the canopy, but you could clearly see how the darkness changed as something moved in front of us. I hope that makes sense. It was like something big just walking across a gap in the trees ahead of us, and we knew it was there because even though we couldn't really see it, we heard the trees and vegetation as it moved through it. That scared us both witless for a second, and by the time we both brought our rifles up, it was gone. We were expecting enemy contact at any moment, but this was different. It was like we both knew this was something not natural. The next day, we all saw it. We'd taken shelter in a thick copse of trees that provided protection from the sun and pretty good concealment. Suddenly, we heard it. It was moving through the brush again. We thought it must be VC, so we crawled over the edge of our cover where we could look out and open fire if we needed to. The copse of trees was next to a small opening in the jungle with tall grass, and you could see our trail through the tall grass because it was all beaten down. Well, it was a fake trail. 2 guys had taken the time to make a fake trail that led into the jungle on the far end of the field and in big circles to confuse anyone following us. We couldn't see it, but we heard the brush, and then we could spot the vegetation on the far side of the field moving, like something was passing through it. Then you could see where it was going because of the way it pushed the grass down as it moved. It went up to our fake trail, and it seemed to stop. Then it started following it. At this point, it was close enough that you could see the shimmering effect, like in the Predator movie. It was like you could see through it, but everything behind it was distorted. That thing followed the fake trail back into the jungle, and we could hear it moving in the distance. After that, we never saw or heard it again. I don't know if it really lost our trail or maybe it just got bored. I wish the story was more exciting, but it was plenty exciting to us because we lived it. When we got back, we swore we wouldn't tell anybody about what we saw out there because who would believe us? And none of us wanted to get put up for some kind of psychiatric review or anything. I can't tell you much about what it looked like, only that it was big. You could tell from the size of the visual distortion it created and all the grass and vegetation it pushed out of its way. I don't know if it was alien or anything like that. I just know what I saw. And I know that plenty of other people saw things like that too. The Dream. It was the mid-2000s, and I was on a security patrol guarding an Air Force installation. I worked the midnight shift at the time. And even though it was strictly prohibited, and you could get in serious trouble for it, it was common practice for people to do what we call one up, one down. In other words, I nap for an hour or two while you stay alert, and then we swap. When you're stuck in a Humvee without even a radio to listen to, and overnight on a 12-hour shift, it's almost impossible to not fall asleep. One night I had a strange dream while it was my turn to be down. In my dream, I woke up from my nap and I looked across at my partner, who was dead asleep. I didn't realize I was dreaming, and I got really angry, so I reached over to shake him awake. He didn't even stir, though no matter how hard I shook him. Suddenly, I happened to glimpse a figure in front of the Humvee and turned my attention to the darkness around us. To my surprise, a bunch of people stepped out of the shadows and completely surrounded the Humvee, standing shoulder to shoulder. But what alarmed me the most was that these weren't really people, at least not in the face. There was just enough light to see that their faces were all wrong. They had no noses, tiny, tiny mouths with a very pointy chin, and their skin was really pale, and they had giant eyes that almost stretched to the sides of their head. It freaked me out, and I reached for my weapon, but I couldn't pull it free for some reason. I tugged, and despite it not being stowed or latched onto anything, it was as if I wasn't even strong enough to budge it. Then all of a sudden I woke up for real, and I looked over to realize my partner was asleep. For a second I had a flashback to the dream and a bit of paranoia, but there was nobody around us, and my partner woke up when I angrily shook him. He apologized and said he had no clue how he'd fallen asleep. I didn't think much of it until several weeks later, when I went to our small break room to heat up my dinner. There was another patrol sitting there, and one of the guys was talking in a hushed tone. My ears pricked up when he mentioned having a strange dream out on patrol, and then it blew me away when he started retelling exactly that same dream. I thought it must have been some type of prank. There was no way anyone else knew about my dream because I'd never told anyone, not even my partner, on the night it happened. I started talking to people and found that 3 other people had the same dream in the last 2 months, and all of us had been assigned to the exact patrol when it happened. I don't know what it means, but to this day, I can picture those faces, which terrifies me. Afghanistan Beast. Part of our job in Afghanistan was to provide security for State Department personnel and intelligence guys as they went to visit tribal chiefs way up in the mountains. There were few roads, and it was a dangerous job. Early on in the war, it was important in order to secure alliances, or at least assurances, that the tribes wouldn't attack NATO interests. We paid the tribes large sums of money to either help us or at least not actively hurt us. These people lived very simple lives up there in the mountains. There are barely any that have electricity up there, and if they do, it's usually some old generator. I don't think anyone up there has ever seen a TV or a movie in their life, and that's important for what's coming next. I also know what we experienced was real because I heard it from the other guys who did these trips up into the mountains. The chief we talked to on the trip was pretty friendly to us, and it probably helped that we funneled something like $20,000 to him since the war began. An absolute fortune to these people. We were up on a goodwill tour, showed our faces, had the medics treat a few people, and reminded everyone we were their friends. This was important because they controlled a pass through the mountains and kept the Taliban or terrorist forces from using it for us. Anyway, we'd settled for dinner when suddenly one of the young boys came running in a panic. He was white as a sheet. I can't understand him, but he keeps saying one word motion, and a few of the men gathered rifles and started rushing out into the night. Our Terp translated what he could for us, but he never heard this word that they'd kept using before. So we ran after them, thinking maybe it was the bad guys about to ambush us. We always kept our gear within arm's reach, even though it was seen as a bit of an affront to the locals. We were supposed to be safe with them. Money and medicine smoothed over any offense, though. We followed the group of men to the edge of the village, where the older boys had herded the livestock into corrals for the night. There was always a small group of lookouts there, mostly just for predators, though there was the occasional bandit, they said. Well, when we got there, the place was a mess. One of the boys was unconscious, and an old Kalashnikov was lying by his side. He'd been the only one armed, and there was no sign of the other boys. There was a small mixed herd of sheep and goats, along with some donkeys and a few mules. The animals were going crazy. We could see a blood smear on the ground that the animals had all avoided, and damage to the wooden fence from where it looked like something big had knocked into it. They kept repeating that word, and the men rushed out into the dark. We followed, still not sure what was going on. I had a thermal sight that I used to scan ahead of us, and I spotted a large heat source close to the ground. I thought it must have been a very big rock that was still radiating heat from the sun, until suddenly the thing stood up. And I do mean stood, as in it was on 2 legs. The thing let out a horrible scream like nothing I'd ever heard. It was like a mix of the Jurassic T-Rex and the shriek of a jet engine, starting off really bassy and ending up in a high pitch. We must have been at least 70 meters away when it roared, and I swear I could still feel it in my chest. The men seemed nonplussed, though, and they just started firing at it. But I could see through my thermal as it just bounded away at incredible speed, out of sight and over a ridge in seconds. Nobody chased the creature further, probably because it was a waste of time. That thing was too fast. Turns out whatever it was had snuck up to the ambulance, knocked out the oldest boy who had the gun. I don't know how it got so close. The boys that had been talking among themselves. full-grown animals and just stepped over the small fence.